born in England, but came to Africa as a young boy. For the past 12 years, he's dedicated himself to saving a rare species of African dog on the brink of extinction.
I've always been passionate about wildlife from day one. I mean, even as a child, I love the bush, I love Africa. It holds an endless fascination. I mean, it's always changing, and there's just so much to learn. It's like a book that just never ends.
Greg is one of the few pilots in the area, and even though he's busy with his own project, he's agreed to help a fellow conservationist search for a lost rhino.
People very concerned about the rhino, and National Park said, would I assist? And I said, of course I will. If wildlife needs help, I'll help.
Greg's a capable pilot, but flying a plane and tracking animals requires intense concentration, and he'll be flying over unfamiliar terrain.
And I was aware of that, I was fully aware of that, but we had rhinos that needed locating. There were poachers out there. I mean, you can't turn your back. I can't turn my back on things like that.
An ultralight plane is a cheap and efficient way to cover the African bush, but is also very dangerous to fly under certain weather conditions.
Temperatures in the day can be very, very hot. Tricky flying conditions for a light aircraft. Because, you know, it's hot, the air's thin, so it's quite hard keeping the plane up in the air. This was a very harsh, dry, rocky, rugged area. I'd never flown that area before, and I realized I was in a completely different territory.
The rhino is electronically tagged, and in no time, Greg's tracking device picks it up.
I just found it. I hadn't actually seen it, but I realized that it was alive by this movement signal. And I was just starting to circle out. And as I turned the plane, suddenly I went into something known as a wing storm. Literally, one wing's flying and one wing isn't. Suddenly I had this gut-wrenching feeling. I put full power on the rudder. Pulling back on the stick, I was doing the right thing, and it wasn't working. And the plane started to go down in a spiral, and the ground were coming up pretty damn fast. And then there's a split second. You know you've passed the point of any return. I almost didn't want to open my eyes. I didn't know what I was going to see, what I was going to feel, what I was going to find. I was totally dazed, stunned. And I was like, I'm alive. I'm alive. And at that second, petrol started dripping over me. And I just pulled myself out, literally almost fell out of the plane. As the petrol started to come down, I had these visions of this wall of fire. And I could just see myself being incinerated alive. And I knew my legs were doing nothing. I couldn't do anything with the legs at all, but I just had to get away from this plane. I mean, this thing was a nightmare now. And then I suddenly thought, Mayday. I've got to call Mayday. And I didn't want to go back to that plane. I didn't want to go near it. But I had to brave it, because I knew that that was my only means of survival. And I knew the quicker I got a message out, the better.
Greg has to try and make a call. No one knows exactly where he is or that he has crashed. He has no survival gear with him, no food, no water, and he's severely injured.
Mayday! Mayday! And the whole handset was hot. The crash had short-circuited all the batteries and had literally fried my only means of survival, the emergency radio. And then something happened that literally just changed almost everything. The pain hit, because the adrenaline had worn off.
On the outside of his body, Greg has only a few superficial scrapes, but inside he is bleeding badly, and his legs are broken in 6 different places.
That was a pain that I'd never experienced before. Anything like it, anything that even came close to it. My legs felt like they were going to explode from within. My feet were just doing this. My legs were just one big lump of jelly. And I realized I had to stay in control. You know, I had to be in control of the situation, because if you lose control, that's it. I was going to be a goner. I started to try and take stock of the situation. And it was quite a harsh reality. I suddenly realized there was no 999. There was, you know, if I was going to get out of this, it was only going to be me and me alone.
Greg is over 70 miles away from the nearest road. By the time anyone realizes he's in trouble, it may be too late. The brutal heat of the African sun will bake him alive. If he survives that, he will face worse horrors. As night approaches and hungry predators come out to feed. Unable to move, Greg is easy meat. But right now the pain from his smashed legs is all he can think of.
There was this pain in my ankles. They felt like they were going to explode, because I'd got these boots on. Yeah, and of course there was no space for the swelling to go. There was no way I could even get anywhere near my shoelaces. But I was thinking, if I don't get those boots off, there's going to be gangrene, and I'm going to lose my feet. I lose my legs. I managed to look back, and I thought, well, maybe if I can drag myself to this tree, I can tilt my body forward so that I can maybe get to my shoelaces somehow. I wanted to stop that pain. Because, I mean, it was like my foot was exploding.
Fate is being cruel today. The closest tree to Greg is a thorn tree. But as its thorns dig deep into his back, Greg realizes they might be useful.
And I managed to just break a twig off that was about a foot long, and it got a hooked thorn on the end of it. And I lay there and I could hardly focus. There was just so much pain. I started to pick the shoelace. I thought, well, this is all I've got. And I remember I had a little flashback to childhood, because I was always absolutely useless with shoelaces. I then realized I had one chance. If I pull and the knot doesn't spill, then I've blown it. That's that foot gone.
Greg manages to loosen the shoelaces and get them both to the same stage, but nothing happens.
But the boots remained absolutely solid on my feet. And I realized then I had to pick the shoelace eye by eye through every single eyelid. And all the time, all I'm thinking of is, if I don't get those boots off, I'm going to lose my feet. And it was almost, it was like a nightmare. Ah! I had to remain as focused as I could. And I picked and I kept on picking until I finally got to the point where the shoelace was free. Ah!
Loosening his boots isn't having the effect Greg expected. The pain is just as bad because his feet keep swelling up to fill the newly expanded space. He has to try something else.
I was terrified to even think about going to sleep because I knew that I wouldn't wake up again. That would be it.
Then Greg's worst nightmare comes to life. Once again, he recognizes an animal by the sound its feet make when they touch the ground. He hears a hyena.
And I thought, it's coming behind me. And it's going to come right in the worst spot. It's going to come round the back, which is where I really had absolutely no control.
Once again, Greg uses his knowledge of animal behavior. He grabs hold of his stick and gets ready to hit the plane with it and create a noise to startle the beast.
And I waited until it seemed like forever. I knew if something came one step closer, then would have meant that I'd failed. Then I heard this just footfall, just getting less and less and less. I remember lying there at that particular point thinking, is there anything else that's going to be chucked at me? You know, what else is going to come? You know, what other brick's going to come down?
Greg does his best to stay positive. In 1 hour, the sun will rise and he will have made it through the night. But it is one very long hour.
It was very frustrating waiting for the daylight to come. I contacted our office. We had 15 people that could come over and help with the ground search so we could cover a wider area. And they were there. They came, ready and waiting to help with the search.
I watched, looking for the sun to come over the horizon. And when it finally did, I felt these rays coming all the way towards me. And it was an amazing experience. I suddenly felt wonderful. I was bathed in light and heat and warmth. I felt secure for a moment. And then the harsh reality dawned on me that it was that sun, that burning, was going to continue and it was going to kill me.
At first light, the spotter plane sets out again. It'll make a systematic search of the places where Greg's plane might have crashed. At Peter's suggestion, Norman is on board.
He knew the area better than anybody. I really felt strongly that if anybody was going to find Greg, it would actually be him.
The additional members of the search team fan out, but they're still looking in the wrong area. It's been nearly 24 hours since Greg crashed, a deadly amount of time to be out in the African bush injured and unarmed.
You know, I was beginning to doubt if he'd survived.
Greg has a global positioning system, yet the technology is useless if he can't tell anybody else where he is. But every time he turns it on, it records the exact time.
I was checking on the GPS, trying to get the coordinates and times. And then I suddenly had this horrible feeling that this GPS was almost acting like a record of when I was still alive and when I died. If I was dead when they arrived, Peter would pick up the GPS and he'd look at it and think, oh my God, he was alive at, I don't know, 11:40. And it's now 12 o'clock, and if only we'd... And he'd have been left with this eternal guilt. And I almost wanted to destroy the GPS at that point.
Norman to Peter, can you read me? Over. Norman to Peter, can you read me? Over.
Receiving.
There's nothing from up here. Even an elephant can merge into this landscape. We're going to try another area.
On a hunch, Norman decides to go back and check along the beginning of the route that Greg would have taken. Nearly 24 hours has passed, and Greg's body is desperate for water.
I managed to grab a piece of the broken windscreen. I had this mad idea to see if it would collect moisture. And then I heard this plane. And when I heard the plane get louder and louder, I thought, right. I was going to try to see if I could get something out of that radio. Basically, it was all I had left that I could think of. Even if it gives the weakest signal, it's worth a try. And I gave it all I'd got. I remember it now.
Mayday. Mayday. This is Zulu Mike Echo Bravo calling Mayday.
And then my position is
20 miles east-northeast, Cinematella. Mayday.
I thought I heard the plane get louder. And I thought, it's worked, it's worked. And I gave myself almost an elated sort of feeling. But that's because that's what I wanted to hear. I knew I was lying to myself. Mentally, I had to stay with it. Because if you get into depression, that's it, the game's over.
Not knowing whether he's imagining the search plane or if it's really there, Greg grabs a piece of his wreckage, one of the struts, hoping it will reflect the light and be seen by the plane above.
Leg!
search parties. We've located the wreckage 40 miles south of the main search area. No sign of Greg.
I was trying to keep up the dream that they had really seen me. But I realized I had to keep telling myself this lie, because I did know that I was reaching the point of no return. If they didn't find me soon, I was going.
We can't land. I repeat, we can't land. We're going to have to go by road. Meet back at the base camp immediately. I repeat, meet back at the base camp immediately.
I felt numb. I wanted to see, you know, what was there. I wanted to see Greg. I wanted to just get to the site.
He's here, south of the road. The rhino's obviously moved.
Okay, let's move it.
Peter, I didn't see any sign of life. I don't know if it's a good idea that you come.
I need to see him.
I was really afraid. You're just thinking, okay, we've found him, but we don't know what we've found yet. And you imagining all sorts of horrors.
And then I heard these footfall. I can't describe. Of course, I knew what footfalls those were. And among them was Peter. And I suddenly looked and I couldn't believe it, that was him. I couldn't even speak to anybody, and people were just saying what happened, and I just had to say, wing, stall, and that's all I could say.
It was really overwhelming. He'd survived. And it was sort of affirmation of my belief in him.
The feeling that I wasn't going to die was just indescribable. I'd fought this and I'd won. And somebody came up, I hadn't got a clue who it was. Someone put their hand on my shoulder and said, "You're in safe hands now."
Since the accident, Greg has undergone more than 100 operations to save his legs. Through grit and sheer willpower, he has learnt to walk again.
Of course you don't go through something like this without there being change. in who you are. I always treated life every day as precious, but it's even more precious now. I still am dreaming of that day when I go back to Africa, back to the smells, back to the sunrises, the sunsets, and most importantly, the painted dogs and wildlife conservation.
Greg has indeed returned to his beloved dogs. He continues his conservation work alongside Peter and has never flown an ultralight plane again.
Wow. Incredible.
Beautiful.
When you see this placid blue of the Sea of Cortez stretching out in front of you and these dramatic islands coming out of the sea, seeing that was fantastic. Wow, we're here, you know, this is what we were looking for. It's begun.
Mark loved the idea of doing this crossing in such a small vessel because it was more challenging. He doesn't think probably anybody had ever tried it in a 16-foot cat before. Mark's my cousin. I basically met him for the first time as a young teenager. He was about 14 years older than me, almost like a big brother, but we would get together to do a camping trip here and there.
Right in the middle of the cat?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Rob was about 26 years old at the time. Not so much a little brother or a little cousin, but more a peer-to-peer partner. The kind of adventure that we're often looking for borders between Weekend Warrior and Death Wish and that gray area between those things.
You ready?
Yes. Thank you.
Is this baby gonna hold out?
There's too much on it.
Rob did see me as a mentor in terms of teaching him the basics of sailing.
That doesn't sound good. I mean, you're the sailor, but too much weight on a boat. Boat sinks, right?
Boat won't sink. Look, let's leave the wetsuits and the thick clothes. It'll be hot the whole time.
Are you sure?
Yeah. I'm gonna try and spread the weight out a bit. See if it helps. You give me a hand with this water?
Heavy?
About 80 pounds.
The 8-gallon tank is almost like another person, especially when you consider the other gear that we had tied down.
It's perfect sailing weather. But the winds across the Sea of Cortez are notoriously difficult to predict, adding a twisted thrill to the journey.
I love sailing because of the sense of freedom, of being out on the open water. There's also an element of speed because once you get going on a catamaran, it's a feeling of like flying.
Just enjoy the ride. Yeah! We're gonna fly across the Cortez. What happened to the wind?
No, it happens. I read about it. 60 miles an hour to zero like that. I think it's because we're like in a canyon. The wind rattles down here like an alley and then woof, it's gone.
In the dead calm, the heat builds to over 120 degrees. And there's no chance to cool down in this sea.
Watch out for hammerheads.
You mentioned sharks, you didn't mention hammerheads. Weren't hammerheads like the psychopath of the shark world?
Would you be at peace with yourself if you had a head shaped like that?
The Sea of Cortez is not a place to be taken lightly. I had seen a documentary about hundreds of hammerhead sharks moving through this part of the Sea of Cortez. Hammerheads are one of the few species of known man-eaters in the world and are known to be aggressive. This is something we want to keep our eyes open for.
You imagine Catching one of those on the end of your line?
Yeah, maybe drag us into the nearest island. Be like Jaws.
3 hours later, the wind picks up as swiftly as it disappeared. But the dead calm was a warning, a forerunner to something much more sinister on the horizon.
Don't like the look of those clouds. Something's kicking up over there.
Coming out of the north was some kind of a squall or weather front. So we were kind of worried that, wow, what if this is something big rolling through that was not expected and that's going to be here for a while.
We might have to forget about the crossing and head back. What? We might have to. Look, small savage storms. Squalls. If we get caught in one, we're sitting ducks. I'm sorry, Rob. I'm turning around. Fuck.
I think we got water on the portside pontoon.
A small crack has opened up in the pontoon as it pounds the waves. There's no way to bail, and the catamaran starts to become dangerously unstable in the squall.
One big gust of wind, which was probably approaching about 60 or so miles per hour, hit us. We ended up in the water, tangled up in the sheets, with tattered sails in the water and, you know, rigging everywhere. I thought, oh my God, you know, this thing is going to crush my head. And so I thought for sure this boat's going to take my head off. Absolutely, I was scared.
Is it me? Is it now really cold in here? Let's get the cat back up.
We were both getting very cold, on the verge of hypothermia. I was shivering uncontrollably. I was very uncoordinated.
With the shredded sails and stricken pontoon, the catamaran keeps capsizing as Rob and Mark battle with the waves, their gear and the water barrel drift away.
Everything we're doing, everything we're trying is going wrong. And I said, well, what do we do now? Just die?
And when he said that, that brought in basically a flood of emotion where you're going, you know, this could be it. And what a ridiculous way to go.
They're weak, and in this storm, a 12-mile swim to the mainland is out of the question. With no boat, the threat of being eaten by hammerheads is now all too real. Using every last ounce of energy they possess, Mark and Rob head for the closest island. It's now their only hope of survival.
Getting up onto the shore was so incredible in terms of just the mental relief of having dry land under your feet. I think that it was a combination of just good luck and maybe somebody up there looking out for us.
Safe, for the moment, on an island called Guardian Angel.
We were soaked to the core, and we stripped all our clothes off and got in our sleeping bags and got into a fetal position to try to conserve warmth.
We were probably in pretty advanced stages of hypothermia. You're still shivering like crazy, but you know you've got a little cocoon of what will eventually become warmth as your body heats up the damp parts of the sleeping bag.
Rob, you okay?
At this point, your mind is playing tricks on you. You're not thinking clearly. And I saw this very strange, light-colored thing that was jumping around on the ground.
Rob, wake up.
I'm awake.
There's something over there.
I'm not opening my eyes.
Look.
I assumed at that point that this was some kind of animal that was kind of circling us and checking out our campsite.
I'm not opening my eyes. Because I'm thinking, here I am in my bed in San Diego. But if I open my eyes, I might actually be on a desert island freezing cold with no water. So I'm not opening my eyes.
Looking at me. Open your eyes.
I'm not opening
Open your eyes. Look.
It's a rock.
You honestly think that's a rock?
Now go to sleep. Wake up, dude. Wake up. The good news is the catamaran's sitting on the beach.
Yeah?
The bad news is it's in a million pieces.
Must have taken a hell of a beating against the rocks.
At this point, we realized we're going to be on this hot, dry, no water, no food island and situation, and we're going to have to figure out how we're going to cope with this.
You want to try and swim it?
Gonna be eaten by a hammerhead?
We could climb out.
Oh, this cliff's gotta be 100 feet high. You get to the top, there'll be a ridge and then another cliff 100 feet high. It's gonna be over 110 degrees by midday. Without water, you wouldn't make it 50 feet. And then I'd have to watch your dead body fall back to the beach, so no thanks, bud.
So we're trapped.
Guardian Angel Island is a barren piece of volcanic rock, surrounded by shark-infested seas. It's 40 miles long and 5 miles wide, and the high cliffs mean that Mark and Rob can't escape from their narrow piece of shoreline. They're slowly dying, and their families have no idea that anything's wrong.
Out of all the ways my life could end, heart attack, car accident, plane crash, I ain't gonna die of thirst on a desert island. How ridiculous is that?
The thoughts of death start to creep in, and for the first time, I realized that we could actually die on this island. Will it be Mark that goes first, or will it be me that goes first? Or are we gonna go so delirious and crazy that we kill each other?
I keep picturing our bones lying on the ground like the iguana skeletons all around the canyon. You don't feel that?
A couple of times I've imagined a policeman walking down the path to my house. He knocks on the door, and my wife answers. The next thing I see, she's crying.
I really hate that my family now is going to start being concerned that they haven't heard from us.
Yeah, it enters my mind, but then I push it out. We are going to survive.
What if we're here for 2 weeks or a month?
Look, we'll be rescued. I promise.
It would have been devastating, of course, if Rob had come to any serious harm. I would almost rather not have come home myself than to have faced his mother to tell her that I had lost her son. When I woke up the next morning, I reached down, as I typically do, kind of twist my wedding ring on my finger, and it was gone. I realized that this thing had actually just fallen off my finger during the night.
Rob, you seen my ring?
No.
I lost my wedding ring.
That's right.
When it slipped right off my finger, that was, to me, an indicator that things were starting to get very critical.
Got it. You okay, amigo?
Sure.
My mind and my vision and even my hearing were playing tricks on me.
You see something out there?
No.
The dehydration was definitely the major culprit in causing delirium and the mind tricks. These ant colonies seemed to take on a life of their own. It was like I was one of the ants.
Get in here.
I'll be right in.
I didn't know if I was going insane. I didn't know what was going on. It was bizarre and surreal at the time. It almost seems like a dream to me now. It was really starting to get to me. I was drained, I was quite delirious, and I was beginning to lose it. At this point, I knew that I could possibly die.
Did you hear that? Rob. Sounds like a boat.
Man, it's probably a wave. Or a pelican. Or the cactus talking to you or something.
Rob, get up. There's definitely a boat out there. Hey! Hey! Hey!
This way!
Over here!
Sure enough, there was a boat just a few hundred yards out.
Over here!
And we're thinking, oh my God, this thing is going to keep going. But it didn't. It stopped. And we're going, I think it stopped, you know? This thing is sitting there. The motor started revving again, and it started coming towards us. And we're going, oh my God, this thing's heading our way.
An incredible sense of relief and adrenaline rushed over me that I never felt before.
Are they Mexican fishermen? Why have they stopped?
I couldn't tell what they were saying, but they seemed pretty suspicious. Who knows what, who these two gringos could have been.
Why aren't they coming to get us?
I don't know.
Hey!
Let me deal with it.
I am not fluent in Spanish, but I know enough to get along and was able to respond to them.
Hey, ¿qué pasó? Oye, estamos aquí por 3 días. Mira, mira, el barco choco con rocas.
That would have been devastating had they been so suspicious that they would just leave us behind. My spirits would have just sank to beyond the depths.
There's nothing that Mark and Rob can do. They are at the mercy of these fishermen who don't seem to believe their story of being shipwrecked on the island and living off cactus juice and crabs. Mark begs for their lives.
Es verdad. 3 días, no agua. Gracias. Muchas gracias.
They basically brought the boat around, and I guess were convinced that we weren't, crazies or something.
Just stay cool, man, until we know who these guys are. Okay? Muchas gracias. Gracias. Vamos, rápido. Muchas gracias.
At that point, your mind is just so relieved that that you're now out of that predicament, and it looks like you're going to make it home. That it's just an overwhelming sense of relief. Glad to be alive and glad that we didn't die. They pulled up a 1-gallon container of water and headed directly towards Bahia de Los Angeles. The feeling of having gulps of water actually go down your throat was just incredible.
It was a bizarre feeling to feel your body hydrate almost instantaneously. You could almost feel it pumping out through all of your limbs and all of your veins. It was the best water I've ever swallowed.
The people in the boat brought us up to the actual town of Bahia de Los Angeles and gave us a gallon of water and said, "Good luck." And they turned around and they were gone.
The first thing Mark does is make an emotional call to his wife, who has no idea what he's just been through.
Yeah, I promise I'm fine. Just a little problem with the cat. I'll tell you about it later. We should be home early tomorrow morning.
It's sort of embarrassing that you've put yourself into this, life-threatening situation for, basically an adventurous whim.
Yeah, I love you too.
Before taking off, Rob and I at the general store basically loaded up on all the things your body is craving at that point. Things that are fatty, things that have some taste to them, things that are liquid, and kind of gorged ourselves. All of a sudden it's like, wow, we survived that.
I feel lucky now that I made it through that, A lot of people might not have made it.
What started as a joke ended as a nightmare. Severe dehydration, vicious insect bites, sunburn and starvation combined to take these cousins close to death and back again.
When you come out of the tail end of this alive, that establishes a kind of a bond that is different than, a family bond. We share this common experience, but I'm not sure that he'd ever go sailing with me again.